Okay, everybody, this is Purple Smurf, and this is There Will Be Ink. It is Tuesday night, 11:30 in the Eastern Time Zone, and we're going to play my theme song here, which I know you're going to enjoy. And we'll talk about who our guests are, what the topic is. Maybe turn that up a little bit. Hope you can all hear that in video land. But this is the one and only show There Will Be Ink. We're going to draw, meet artists who have campaigns, get to know people you wouldn't otherwise meet, maybe meet some of the artists hanging out in the chat, people that could do a variant cover for you or a pinup cover for you down the road. Today, our guest is Wyatt Holliday. His upcoming book, Eternal Armor, is a love letter to Japanese giant robot shows such as Mazinger Z, Get a Robo G, and a whole host of them that I also love very deeply. So as soon as I saw Wyatt's book, I was just like the GIF of MacGruber. I was in. My other guest is Demos Z. He's a webcomic artist who is also doing a giant robo theme piece called Grand Nexus. So the focus is on Wyatt tonight, 100%, but I thought having another giant robot fan wouldn't hurt. Might even have another couple artists joining us. JB is a regular with us, and who knows, a few others might come too. The purpose of my show is we don't do politics, we don't do divisive politics, but we do talk about creativity, conversation, and the indie comic scene. You know, if you've been paying attention for the last couple of years, you know, things have been said, and then things have come true, you know. Some certain YouTube personalities said that, you know, the mainstream comic industry was going to implode. And my friends, it kind of did. So, this is that time. If you're an indie creator, you don't have any reason to be sitting on the sidelines. You need to get on the road and start driving, get on the construction site and start building, get on the ice, lace up your skates and start skating. I don't know what metaphor you need, but the time has never been better to be an indie creator. We have small batch printing and a high quality. We have the internet to connect with customers. We have YouTube to live stream. We have everything we need to be our own producers, advertisers, and publishers. So this is the time. There's never been a year like this year. And that's what we're focused on here. It's easy to complain. It's easy to, you know, be negative, but I look at the road ahead as very bright for all of us. So everybody out there in indie comics verse, indie comics world, this is the year to build, to make connections, and start making the foundation for how far you want to take this next year. Like a famous comics personality once said, and I think about this all the time, how small do you want this thing to be? I know all of you are enjoying my rap, and you're also enjoying watching these scenes from Tosho Gordion, a great Japanese robot show. I like this. Gordion beats them out to death with his laser whip, and he's leaving with his robot panther Clint, and then he says, wait, and he throws him a box of Band-Aids. And then, this is the best part, they thank him. They're like, thank you for the bandages. Look at this. It's great. You gotta love it. But this is a great show. The animation, the character designs, and the vehicle designs in the show are just amazing. You know, if you grew up watching Transformers or G.I. Joe, you see a lot of the same vehicle designs, explosions, buildings. It's just amazing how Toei Animation, Sunrise, and Tatsunoko, how their fingerprints are on all of our childhoods in the 80s. Even if you didn't think you were watching their work, you were, you know. So let's introduce our guests today. I'm going to take that screen away. And first up, let's talk to Wyatt Holliday. Wyatt, how are you?
Hey, how's it going, man? Good.
Going great. So let's talk a little bit about, you know, where you're coming from and where you've been. You did Ardana, and was that issue number 0?
Yeah, correct.
Tell us all about that, and then get us into Eternal Armor.
Yeah, I started all this probably, April will be 2 years. So I started all this a little less than 2 years ago. Ardana was actually my first campaign, and getting started, there weren't, 2 years ago, there were some people involved in this, but it wasn't what it is now.
No,
and
I remember.
So, I really didn't know what was going to come of things. So I thought, we'll do a 0 issue that way, worst case scenario, we don't have a 100-page book we're trying to get out there or whatever. And, worst case scenario, I lost some money, I'll move on. So, we put it together. it did fine. And then a little while later, I worked on. I'm also co-creator and writer of Rocket Gal and the Mole Men of Mars. I worked
Oh
on
yeah,
that with
right.
Peter Gilmore.
With Peter
Yeah.
Gilmore. Yep.
Yep. And so that was my second campaign, and that did well. And then a lot of people, they saw that campaign and they really, they didn't know I had done anything before that. So they were asking, hey, we missed your first campaign. So that was what the latest Ardana campaign was. It was kind of a second chance of the original campaign, but didn't have enough books left to run a campaign just with the leftovers.
Yeah, of course.
So we kind of had to do a new edition for that. It did very well.
How many pages is that story?
It is 20. I think it's just a normal size. Yeah, it's just
Like
standard
22?
size, 24.
24, great.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And it was meant to be a zero issue to introduce the characters in the world, get everybody on board, see if see if they like
Test
what
the
we're
waters.
bringing to see if they like what we're bringing to the table. I've always been a big fan of fantasy, sword and sorcery, Conan the Barbarian, that kind of stuff. So
yeah, absolutely.
So and I wanted to kind of do something different for at the time that that I was getting started.
Mm-hmm.
So there weren't a lot of fantasy books at the time. So
yeah, I also love Robert E. Howard a lot. As a teenager, I read everything that Lovecraft did, and I was just so into that. But I just kind of wish someone in a time machine would have been like, no, dude, now read Robert E. Howard. Now read Clark Ashton Smith. Now read all the people that Lovecraft was writing letters to every week.
Now read Edgar Rice Burroughs.
I know. But I'm having so much fun discovering their work as a more mature reader. When Robert E. Howard is good, he is fantastic. When he's hitting on all cylinders, he's unbelievable.
Absolutely. Yeah, I live like about 2.5 hours away from the Robert E. Howard Museum.
Right, so. And in Texas terms, that's like next door, I would imagine.
Yeah, in Texas terms, that's really close. Yeah. That's a short drive.
That'd be a drive, but not for Texas, yeah.
Yeah.
I'd like to go there sometime. I'd like to sort of experience that, because you can see when you read about his world and Conan's philosophy. That's a funny thing, because Conan in the movies is great and Arnold is great, but the Conan of Robert E. Howard is actually a philosophical character. Mm-hmm. He believes that his view of being a barbarian is actually morally superior than the civilized and privileged people.
Yeah.
And he proves it again and again. So I feel like that comes out of Robert E. Howard's his upbringing too, seeing all kinds of new money coming into his town, but then kind of chit-chatting with all the old Texans who'd actually, fought in wars, shot guns, done all the things that adventurers do,
Mm-hmm.
It's just contrasting that sort of new money versus old experience. And that plays out in almost all of his stories,
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool. And is Ardana going to continue?
Yeah, man. For sure. The Second Chance campaign, which we called the Legendary Edition, just to differentiate from the original. It did better than twice as well as the original campaign. So, people dig it. So,
so I definitely want to get a copy. I feel like
in future books will Ardana, anything in the future is going to be 48 pages or more. Yeah. Like I said, that's why I also had the foresight to make it a zero issue.
Yep, exactly.
So I always thought that was cool. I don't know if you read Valiant comics back in the day.
I didn't really read too much of them, but I see them in the boxes now, and I definitely dig them.
Yeah,
I go to a comic shop. I'm all in the old back issues. I'm on the dollar bin.
Zero issues were really cool, back then, and so I kind of had a soft spot for that, and I thought it'd be cool to just come at it from that angle. So it worked out well. So.
And how did you get connected with Peter Gilmore and the UK people? How'd that happen?
Oh gosh. Well,
if it's not an interesting story, tell the part of it you feel like. Don't feel that I'm burdening you with a long story here.
No, no, no. It's no, it's just man, I was just got to go back in the memory for that one. Yeah, but
Was it just a Twitter thing where like they like you, you like them, let's do something?
well, I kind of just ran into him a couple of times because really when I first started, I could name, most of the crowdfunding creators on Twitter.
Mm-hmm.
So, I wouldn't have a prayer now, but so I saw him around, but not long after I started was about the time Mandy Summers and the Zaid brothers and some of
Yep,
those
yep,
came in, and
sure. Yep.
we hung out and hit it off, and then Peter came along and he did that cover for the first Wart the Wizard.
Yep, yep, yep.
So that's how we ended up,
That's how it got kicked off.
talking
Yeah.
more. So yeah, we
Well,
kind of met through Mandy Summers,
yeah,
and
Mandy and I, we DM'd a little bit, and I'm hoping to get on her show to promote Tales of Zero. So here's hoping.
yeah, yeah, yeah. She said, yeah, I think she told me either that she was coming here soon, or you were
Oh,
coming
that'd
there
be cool.
soon, or something.
Oh, I should go on her show. I mean, you know,
So
I'm a small potato in the patch, but the funny thing about me is maybe it's like you. It's like I really believe in the book Tales of Zero, and I really believe that when people get it in their hands and kind of go on the ride,
mhm.
that that it's a self-fulfilling experience. When you take that ride and you put the book down at the end, you're gonna be like, oh yeah, that was good.
Yeah,
It's not like, oh, Purple Smurf's a cool guy. Like, who cares about me? You know what I mean? It's like I'm just the guy, but man, it's about the ride that the reader goes on.
mhm.
And I'm very confident that when people take this ride, they're going to be excited about it. So that's the sort of thing I want to get the word out now, not because I want people to know my name or my face, but man, I want to get this book into people's hands so that they can take the ride and get excited for, maybe we gear up for issue 2. I already have the story outline done for it, and so
Yeah,
you got to take one step at a time. You got to swing the bat, get a base hit. That's really what it comes down to, right? I mean,
absolutely, dude. And getting started is the hardest part, man.
yeah,
The there's going to be hurdles and obstacles and challenges, and
definitely.
sometimes even by Eternal Armor is going to be my fourth campaign, but sometimes by your fourth campaign you still don't have it all figured out, or you
Yeah,
still
yeah. I think it's
but
yeah. There's been like I say, part of the reason that I say like no politics and stuff is that it's not that obviously all life contains politics, all life contains that.
Mhm.
So, but it has a little bit more to do like in the indie comics verse, because I've been watching since what you're talking about. Like I remember all these things. So I was there, I was lurking. You didn't see me, but I was there. So I remember when Mandy got started. I remember when Wart the Wizard launched. So I've been watching, and what I've seen sometimes is that people who were allies, you come back 2 months later and they're fighting, and you're like, huh,
Yeah,
what I miss, and I feel like the thing to watch out for is just like make it about the book and make it about sharing the excitement of the book, and then yeah, loyalties can change, people fall out, that's life, happens in real life too. But man,
yeah,
when it's about the product, it's like, oh, this guy's a jerk, or this guy's, but man, his cover was good. Oh, but
yeah,
man, that Eternal Armor, that was a good book, though. You can't deny. So it's like
right.
lead with the storytelling, lead with the product, and if you have a falling out with people, it's just stay cool, because we're still all swimming in the same sea here. People don't go away. So when you burn a bridge, you're just burning yourself.
Yeah, yeah,
So people can disagree, people can fall out. Nobody has to be best friends. But I've seen some wild stuff, and it's just been. I've always kept track of people that if my first impression of them was like, hey, this looks like a person. Yeah, this was someone I could. And then I keep tabs on them, and months later I still feel the same way. It's like
right.
your first impression can be pretty good.
No, yeah, yeah, man. I think we all. Yeah, I'm just trying to make comics, man.
Exactly.
That's every once in a while I might jab somebody here or there on Twitter, but I mean, but for the most part, I'm just having fun. So
Yeah. No. I mean, it goes out. Every now and then you have to sharpen your elbows and you have to hit back in your hit. That's also just part of life.
mm,
But I think my approach at this point, is just sort of lead with the story, lead with the product, lead with the adventure. And just one thing I saw, again, not to get into the history of internal fights and stuff, but it's like at one point I saw one group sort of splinter off, and then they started attacking the customers of the other big name creator, and I'm thinking that's not smart.
Yeah, no.
You know what I mean? Once you start attacking the customers, boy, you've already lost.
Yeah, 100%, man.
Because those should be your customers, So these are lessons I've learned as I was just watching from the sidelines. It's like, be careful, because when you go on the rampage, you're actually alienating that person's customers who might have been your customers.
Yeah, I'm happy to sell my stories to anybody who wants to read them.
That's what I'm saying.
I'll talk to anybody who wants to talk about
anybody. That's it. That's the way it's got to be. It's not 2018 anymore,
If someone thinks that I have a pointer or tip that might help, I'm happy to give advice. But
let's get into the drawing now. Have I got anybody else waiting to come on right now? Who's there? Who have I got there? Is there somebody? I got Damos. You're here with us, right?
I am.
You want me to share your screen? What you're drawing?
Sure. I was just working on it.
All right.
It's kind of similar in idea, but obviously it's also a bit different. So
that's cool.
The comic I'm working on, which is the funny thing is like, it's a kind of hard to really say what else I can about what's going on. I mean,
we can pick up a lot. We're pretty familiar with the
fight scene, so yeah.
I just like the design. I like the design of the whole look there.
Oh, thank you. It's definitely something people have told me a lot. That I definitely have a style to my art.
Mm-hmm. I can remember, and let's shift gears a little bit. Let's have this conversation between Wyatt, the Purple Smurf, Damos Z, just be kind of like a little bit about, the love of giant robot cartoons. And then we'll use that as a segue to maybe watch your trailer in a little bit, Wyatt. And then
sure.
Eternal Armor. I know I stuck you on Ardana for a while, but we'll get there. So I'll tell you what I'm drawing. I'm drawing, mythology and mech was the topic. So I'm drawing a kind of a transformer that's also a Pegasus. So some elements are kind of borrowed. I kind of borrowed the wings from Predaking, the big animal transformer. And then the whole idea that the chest is the face, that's sort of like the face of the animal becomes the chest. That's that's in Predaking as well.
Yeah, like the lion. Yeah.
Like Predaking was a lion, and then Guy King. Guy King had that big skull for a chest.
The giant skull face. Yeah, that's.
So yeah, and I was like that because I saw Guy King.
We used to call it a pumpkin.
Yeah, I like that. It's like I like that it was for kids. They're like, "Hi, kids, robots." Like giant skull. Oh, there were so many fun things in those. I like. Was it? Is it Get a Robo where the it's like General Führer?
Yeah, Get a Robo. That wasn't his name in the Japanese. I think it was like Heimlich or something.
Yeah, that's just his name.
But he obviously looked like Hitler, and when the English dubbers just thought, like, oh, hey, he's just Colonel Führer. He looks like Hitler. He's basically dinosaur space Hitler, so...
Yeah, well, I'll tell you, I was living in Germany when that was on. So that was some hoots, watching that in Germany, because at that time in Germany, this was, during the early 80s.
Yeah, so you're watching at the air bases, I assume.
Yeah, and so at that time, the German, that was kind of sensitive. Those issues were kind of sensitive,
I have to admit something a lot of German people would often say about the what the Americans saw on the Armed Forces TV. Like, I really wonder if, obviously back then it was all antenna. So I'm wondering if you were like living in Kaiserslautern, however you say K-Town, and you happen to be by a Ramstein, and you just happen to catch like the ultraviolet American shows, and you were a kid and you didn't know what. I would really like to see if there's any stories about that.
Well, I think that from my experience, because I was there, we used to go to Ramstein all the time, for the air shows and everything. And,
God, the air shows. I don't want to open the elephant in a room about the air shows.
Well, I was there in the 80s, and then when there was the tragedy,
Oh no, that's what I was saying. The elephant in the room, the disaster in '88.
No, I felt that, having left, but I remembered what it was like to be there. That's horrible. But anyway, on the positive, the kids in Germany were 100% devouring American culture. They all like Michael Jackson Thriller. They all like Def Leppard.
I think a lot of the world was like that, and then here in America, we were just taking all the German and British.
And it was huge in that same time, because we're talking about 1982, 1983, was breakdancing, and the German kids, they love breakdancing at such a high level. It was a deep and abiding thing, and you can still study it today. That generation, the generation that were kids in 83, 82, 84 in Germany, they still love electro breakdance. Like, it was a galvanizing movement for them.
They still do. I think there's a good reason. It's just very then, because that reminds me with the love of like electro music. They still got it over the Iron Curtain, but like there's a whole but it got really big in former Yugoslavia, where they decided to take techno music but mix it with folk music, and they call it turbo folk.
Well, there you go. That's the name of the next robot.
They're all singing like because it was big during the wars in Yugoslavia, so they're all like these diss tracks to like the country and the politics. I know I'm not trying to go into that, but it's such a weird viewing of like this turbo. It's like it's very techno, but you're doing it to like beats of old like Serbian like folk music. But you keep all the same, and then they plagiarize guys like Rolling Stones for the tunes.
Yeah, that's hardcore. Yep, don't mess with that. That sounds pretty hardcore. All right, let's dip a little bit deeper into this well, and then we're going to dip right into Eternal Armor itself. All right, here's one I want to point out that, man, you might have seen. Have you guys seen that Grandizer was shown all around the Persian Gulf and the Arab states in the 80s?
It's super big
and
there.
It's so big there. I mean, Grandizer is like the hugest thing in the Arabic speaking world, especially in the Persian Gulf. So it's like amazing that these giant robot shows, it's no joke. They are like transcontinental, transcultural. They have such a resonance for people in so many different parts of the globe, The thing
with Grandizer, though, is especially because like it seems like every country, even America, got it, albeit not as much as like other places. Like it's so prevalent, around the world. Like if you could probably take like some Gen Xer from Dubai, Paris, Florence, and Montreal, Davenport, and you put them all in the same room, and or even Japan or South Korea, you bring up Grandizer, and you could probably not know each other or where they come from, but you mentioned that show, and they immediately like. It's a weird thing that these robots. A lot of people point out, stuff like the Muppets transited cultures. It even got into the Soviet Union. Yeah, that is true, but I think it's cooler when it's the giant robots beating each other up.
Well, I think one key to that, and we'll use this as our pivot back to Eternal Armor, is that at least Grandizer, you had Duke Fleed or Orion Quest, and he was a refugee, right?
Oh,
and it's like you have that on your TV in Lebanon during the 80s, in the Arabic states during the 80s, and it's like it's in your home language too. That's the beauty of the dub, is that you're hearing it in your own language. And so when they talk about being a refugee or being misunderstood, fighting for the honor that they have, and it's like, everyone's going to hear that in their own language. And that's something really special.
It's a universal message.
It's a universal message, exactly. And it's like, it's something so amazing. I think Italy was very big. Italy had a lot of the shows that nobody else got. They had Daikengo, and they had a bunch of shows that maybe other countries didn't.
The funny thing with Italy, though, back in the day, they got every robot show except Rydeen. They got the toys of Rydeen, but not the show. So years later, they dubbed it in Italian, and the singers who would sing like the 80s robot shows were reunited so they could sing a new Rydeen opening in the style of what they used to sing.
Well, I got it great. Italy really does Italo disco, and that Italian 80s electronic style is so perfect. So yeah, the Italian themes to some of the Japanese robot shows are wonderful. They can't touch the originals, but they're darn good, All right, let's get into Eternal Armor now. We've reminisced about giant robots of the past. We've talked about giant robots connecting across culture. So take us into Eternal Armor, your inspiration, what's new about it, and we can't wait to hear about it.
Yeah. Well, inspiration wise, I'm a huge Mazinger Z man. That's my jam.
No doubt, it's a lot of people's jam.
So I discovered that I was very young. It was still reruns. I mean, it was still old in the States when I saw it, when it was new to me.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, it was quite a few years old when I saw it. But
I assume you saw the Transor version.
Transor Z, yes, was how I first discovered it. Yeah.
Like it was already like very dated when it was airing, because like
I know,
even then
it didn't matter at all. All the kids my age in my town, we were crazy for it.
Yeah, same here, man.
A
lot of people try to like say that Transor didn't do well because people thought it was a Voltron ripoff, even though obviously it came before. I have never heard anyone back that claim up.
No, even as kids, we knew that the dub of Voltron was a mess. It didn't make sense.
Transor, but Transor, it wasn't as
the dub of Voltron was a mess. Transor Z's storylines and overarching plot lines actually made sense. Where Voltron, even within the episodes, there were contradictions, things that didn't make sense.
It was so bad they had a commission brand. It's just a.
But anyway, so yeah, Mazinger Z, Transor Z. Continue, Wyatt. Tell us more.
Yeah, so I love that. That's probably my all-time favorite. I'm also a huge Robotech / Macross fan.
Mm-hmm.
So, of course, Star Blazers. Captain Harlock. I mentioned that to you before.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought, what if I took some of the elements I like from some of my favorite classics and then put my spin on it. And so what I've come up with is a giant robot story that crosses over into a war story, kind of on the scale of like Gundam or Yamato.
Yeah, great.
And it all centers around a mysterious robot that had been discovered about 20 years ago in the story. And now the bad guy, the second wave of bad guys is coming. And that's where we're going to pick up.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and the giant robot setup, in the Japanese, there was often, there's the son in search of a father figure. There's the scientist that no one on Earth believed. There's his beautiful daughter who's, you know what I mean? Like there's the cast of characters that you can find in almost every show. So what's your cast of characters like?
We have two main characters. When I was originally working on the concept, I had two things I kind of wanted to do with it. And and I didn't really know precisely how it was going to progress at that time. But so what I ended up doing was I kind of wrote two outlines of the story. One, if one character was the protagonist, was the main protagonist, and one if the other character.
Okay.
And then I took those and took what I could use from both and combined them. So really, we don't have. It's kind of we kind of have two protagonists.
That's cool. Yeah, I like that.
So, but the male protagonist, his brother was the original pilot of the robot that they discovered, but he died in the final battle, defeating the first wave of bad guys. And so, our protagonist, his name's Kaito Okada. He was just a kid. He was probably 10, 12, something like that at the time. And but now he's early 20s, and about the time for things to be picking up. The other protagonist is Mika, which I'll show all this stuff later.
Yeah.
But because I can show you guys plenty of.
Do you have a screen you want to share right now?
Sure.
All right. Yeah. Can you put it up here and then we'll.
Yeah.
Since you're talking about it, yeah. So does it take place in Japan or?
Yeah, I
It's
mean,
not clear. It could be an alternate Earth.
it could be anywhere. I mean, it's kind of that undetermined near future
Yeah,
that
yeah,
you
of course.
see in anime a lot.
Of course. Well, even
And
Macross, it's like
so
not even Japan anymore. It's the UN spacey, right? It's like
right,
everything's
right,
changed, right? It's
right. It
physically.
might not. It might be located in what we know to be Japan, but they might call it something else.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't really get too much into all that.
Yeah. All right. If you want to share something, I'll try to put it up.
Yeah, I'm.
In the chat, or are you going to share it directly?
Let's see.
Oh, here we go. Great. All right, cool. Everybody who's in the chat, hey, Chris, ID Crisis, great to see you. So we're doing, yeah, exactly, Clash of the Titans. You know, another great one is literally when you talk about mythology and mecha, just think of the way that the Colossus of Rhodes, right? That was literally a giant robot, right? It stood up on the harbor of the Greek island of Rhodes, and then it came to life, a metal giant man that came to life to defend the city, right? Yeah. So the idea of mythology and mecha, it's not so crazy.
Right.
It looks like these sort of tropes existed as long as we have.
Exactly. All right, keep it going, Wyatt, now that we can see some images.
Yeah, this was the first promo art that we ever did for it. I thought it would be cool to do. I wanted to do kind of like if it were a movie poster teaser.
Yeah.
It kind of reminds the poster kind of reminds me a bit of some of the Mazinger art I'd seen, where more specifically Photoshop. Not trying to insult. I'm not trying to say Photoshop work, but it's like where they take like Great Mazinger and his moves, the Thunder Break, where he shoots a bolt of lightning from his fingers and just decimates everything with it. That's kind of what reminds me of some fan art I've seen of it, where they put it.
Yeah, I wanted to kind of give it that painted look that I've seen.
It works.
It totally works. And who is the artist?
A buddy of mine named Joaquin Zapata.
Nice.
We call him Joaquin Z, obviously, for obvious reasons. But yeah, that was some of the first promo art we did. I thought it'd be cool to give it that kind of. Here's Kaito Okada, one of our protagonists that I was talking about before.
And Joaquin Z is doing like all of it. He does characters, he does mechs, he does everything.
Yeah.
Wow, that's fantastic.
So this was the character concept design for him. Like I said, his brother was the original pilot, and so when he was a kid, but now he's all grown up as our story is beginning, and some new bad guys are on the way. This was the other promo art we did of the female-esque robot.
Mm-hmm.
This is our other protagonist, Mika.
Oh,
the funny thing is, one of my characters from my comic is named Mika. She's actually the best friend of one of my main characters. Is named Mika. Funnily enough.
Yeah.
It's a coincidence, but continue.
Yeah, when you're going through Japanese names, sometimes
it does cross over a lot. Yeah.
So but her uncle was of course. All right, let me back up a little bit. The way they originally discovered this robot, there was a fisherman and his son were on the lake, and they were fishing, and the fish weren't biting because there'd been a drought, so the water was low. They weren't having a great day, but they saw something shining in the distance on the lake. So they go out there, and it's the top of this robot's head sticking out of the water, and the rest of him stuck down in the mud in the lake, and of course, they get scientists out there, and the scientists excavate it, and that's when they begin studying it and all that. And they start to figure out some of how it works. And like I said, Kaito's brother is the guy that they originally recruited to pilot the thing, and of course, figure out a lot of how it worked. Well, her uncle was one of the scientists involved in that, and now that now he's in charge. Now that it's several many years later, but and she was a jet pilot, and now she's been recruited as well. I'm gonna click her again because for some reason there was some designs we did for her.
Yeah, this is great. When you I don't know how if you've known Joaquin Z a long time, but if I were you and I found this artist, I would be like, please stick with me, man. It looks like the perfect artist for the story you're telling.
Yeah, when we originally met, he was almost the artist for Ardonna, and then
Oh, okay.
you know, man, I got something you'd be way better for.
Yeah, well, this is awesome.
So
The style
you'll
is
just give me
so perfect for this story. It really is awesome.
Pretty amazing. I won't lie.
And now we should start getting into some of the interiors.
Oh, cool. So it's black and white. I guess the people in TV land should know that it's black and white.
Correct. Yes. It's going to be black and white interiors, 64 pages. I kind of wanted it to. It's not trying to be manga specifically, but at the same time,
more like the finale of Gunbuster more than anything to me, where it was all black and white, but they painted it like it was a. That was a very good finale. Anyways, continue.
It was good.
I think the manga thing, whether you're reading right to left, left to right, that's a huge quantum leap. So you can do a lot with style and gray scales and hatching patterns and composition that is very evocative of manga. But until you take the leap and read the wrong way, I don't think you're there yet. And that's okay. There's a huge spectrum of what's okay and what people can set their own style.
Mm-hmm.
Like Carla, I want to have Carla as my guest. Her style is just incredible.
Right.
So it's like there's a lot of room for different people's take on taking what manga has given the world and then doing it your way.
Right. Yeah. So that was one of the that's one of the original pages we've been showing around. And there's this.
Yeah, this is fantastic. I like that so much.
And let me see if that's going to be the same page. Nope. That's going to be huge. Hold on.
Chris Oury's in the chat, and he's very happy with what he's seeing as well. It is just
awesome,
great.
Man.
Wouldn't you feel that way, Chris, if you were working on a story and then your artist started turning in pages that look like this? I would just be like, yes.
Yeah. So
I would try to give them a raise just for that.
So yeah, this is one of our pages, one of our sample pages featuring her. And then is that gonna be the last one? Nope. And then this is one of the newest pages we're working on right now. This is a flashback scene of Kaito when he was younger.
Yeah, Chris is blown away. I am too. This is like easy money, right, Chris? You see this and you're like, I'm backing that campaign. It's like a 0-second decision.
And then
backing that campaign. It just
thanks, man. Yeah, thanks.
I just, we all have, at least us here, we have the love of the giant robot thing, but we're also seeing in these pages, we're just seeing it done with a lot of skill and care and attention to style and composition. It just looks great.
You know what you should do? If like a special edition down the line, if you ever do another Kickstarter like years down the line, you should do a campaign for a colored version. Although it's your call, but I think that would be very interesting to see some of it in. Obviously, not all, but
absolutely, man. I'm thinking that there probably will be a color version somewhere down the line. So, yeah, for sure, man.
Yep. That would be a lot of fun to see, definitely.
So, and then today, as you might have seen on Twitter, I've started revealing some of the extras that are going to be part of the campaign, and we've got the stickers from 6 a.m. Comic.
Yeah, I saw those.
So
his style is really awesome.
Yeah, I love his style, man.
Looks nice,
and he's funny. He's just so funny.
Yeah, man. Yeah, I like him a lot. So yeah, man. If you guys, I'll go through some of the artwork again real quick for you guys.
Well, I appreciate the look at it. And you have a launch date?
Yeah, we're about 2 weeks away from that. So I don't have a hard date yet.
Okay.
I'll be, I'll let you guys know about that in the very near future. But about 2 weeks.
Cool.
There's a couple of last things I'm waiting on. So to get to have the campaign page ready and all that.
Yeah, I know. I'm still tweaking mine. We're supposed to launch the day after Valentine's Day. That's like in 4 days, 5 days. But like you say, we'll be ready. We'll be ready. And like I said earlier, all we need to do for Tales of Zero is we just need to get a base hit. We need to find like 100 readers and deliver it on time and exceed their expectations, and then everyone's going to be like, "What's next?" But if you can't get that base hit, who should listen to you, right? You've got to first show that you can play the ball game,
Yeah, man. Absolutely, dude.
So that's all we want. Our expectations are very modest for this campaign. But, being in this world and meeting a lot of cool people, people remember when you do a good turn for them, they'll help you down the road, And so we feel really appreciative of like people who've already helped us out a little bit here and there. And we will help them out too. It's like, you can just imagine, like you were saying, how things were 3 years ago, how things are today, right? So it's like this is going to keep growing, and I feel like the people doing fan art today are the people doing books 2 years from now.
Man, once you deliver and then you continue to deliver, it becomes easier, man.
Yeah, that's what I think too.
So this, like I've said, this is the 4th campaign coming up, and so. Yeah, it gets easier, man.
Yeah,
it does.
I feel like our strength is that I know our story is good. I know that my artist is fantastic. And then if there's a problem with the writers or the coloring, hey, that's me, buddy. So that's all me. So I feel like our quality control is high because we have a team of 2. Everybody pulls their weight, and if anybody's slacking, it's clear, and then that person just go back and hit it harder. So. I see sometimes if you really have a creative team of 5, separate letter, separate color, separate pencil, separate inker, separate script, there's a lot of places in that machine where it could break down, and it's nobody's fault. Life happens, somebody gets busy, somebody gets married. So it's like I feel good about our team of 2, and I've got a few other projects on the back burner to serve up in the year ahead, and I'm generally working in a team of 2 because I can write, I can storyboard, and I can color. So it's like I take up 3 chairs at the table right there. So when I find that one artist and we start vibing, stuff happens. So I'll tell you a quick thing about a project that I have on the horizon. We haven't officially announced it at all because, again, I want to fulfill Tales of Zero before I start saying, all the great things we can do. You just got to prove it first. But you have a story which is coming up. We're looking, hopefully, if Tales of Zero runs smoothly, we'll release this thing around June. And it's going to be kind of like almost like a sword and sorcery, but it's like 1 generation earlier. Here, let me show you my little Pegasus robot here.
Nice, looking good.
See how I did that? So, and I got that kind of Optimus Prime thing on the head. It also evokes the Greek helmet. There's all sorts of connections. And I like to, when I'm doing my pieces, because I'm not really an artist, I draw for fun. I like to do things like the toys a little bit, like. Look how inconsequential the piece is that connects the forearm to the upper arm. When you get the toy and you extend the arm and there's this tiny piece of plastic, it's gonna break. So I like to do my drawings like that, to have them actually have the qualities of the toy that actually, like, that thing could never hold that weight.
Well, I'm not close to revealing anything yet, but what I had been working on was a mecha version of the Kraken.
Oh, man,
Except it's looking a lot like a Quintesson at the moment.
That's good.
So
what's wrong with a Quintesson? Yeah, Quintesson.
It's going to be a Quintesson drawn by me. That's what's going to be wrong.
Oh my gosh. Well, so yeah. Look at this face. I one thing I love about from Takara and the toys that became like Diaclone and the toys that became the Transformers, and then of course the Sunrise and Toei Studios, the way they did the animation. There's a kind of like stoic expression that some of them have, and I love that, where they're like, their face is just sort of this passive, non-emotional face.
Yeah.
Like
a lot of old anime did that.
Yeah, like and there's a show that I've been watching on Amazon Prime, Dan Kuga. You ever hear of that?
Oh yeah, man.
I actually have an art book of the show. in my.
It is. It is.
theory.
I mean, it got by me. I never heard of it because but it was like it's so of its time. It's so 1985 in every way, and the mech animation character design is just really good. And I think the lead artist also worked on Transformers and Transformers the movie.
Masami Obari, he did a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
But one of them that I know he did, he almost did a Mazinger remake, but Toei told him no. So he reworked it into what's now Dangayo.
Mm-hmm.
And he's done he's done a lot of stuff. Like I can't really name anything specific because that's kind of how much Masami Obari's done stuff.
Yeah, he's done so much, yeah.
But with Dan Kuga, you might be surprised, but Dan Cougar is technically a GoBot. And I'll explain.
Okay, I didn't know this.
I'll explain. This is a little bit of a story that I know. So, obviously, the toys of GoBots came from Machine Robo, which was done by Popey and Bandai, who did Chogokin as well as, Jumbo Machinder, Shogun Warriors, that sort of stuff. So, but in Japan, toys get, they have a very short shelf life, even back then. So they had a lot of these Chogokin toys, characters like Dan Cougar and Bio Robo from Bioman, and Voltes 5, even the 80s Tetsugen 28. They just had extras of these that they couldn't sell in Japan anymore because no store wanted them. So they shipped them off to America as Godaiken.
Yeah, Godaiken, that's right. I remember those.
But then, obviously, Godaiken didn't do well in America because most parents weren't going to spend what is today U.S. equivalent of $200 on a robot toy when they could. I mean, some of them already had bootlegs on U.S. shelves that were probably a lot cheaper. The first time Voltron appeared in the U.S. was the Godaiken toy Go Lion, straight up. But they also sold the Taiwanese bootleg Lion Bot.
Yeah, I remember all of these. Every one of these being in the stores.
It was cheaper, but it had the same quality, and it was basically the same thing. So, and there's a lot of these bootlegs sold, so parents just bought those because, hey, it's literally the same thing, made of the same material, but it's cheaper in cost. And well,
I had one of Starscream. I had one of the Starscreams that was like that.
Neat. But getting back to what the thing with Godaiken, obviously these bootlegs made that along with the price, Bandai couldn't sell them. But obviously at the time they gave their toys to Tonka for Machine Robo to make GoBots. But elsewhere, Tonka only had the US rights. Everywhere else, GoBots was Bandai. They renamed it in other countries as Robo Machines. And even in France, they eventually brought over Machine Robo Revenge of the Chronos, which is GoBots, except it's 80s anime, and it's infinitely superior in every way. So they just imported it to France and called it Revenge of the GoBots, and even tried to make it a sequel where the heroes of Machine Robo or Jet Robo and Cycle Robo or Bike Robo. If you don't know, Jet Robo and Bike Robo are some of the GoBot villains, Bike Robo being, Sidekill. So they had to figure out how Sidekill in this was good. So they just said, oh, he changed for the better and everyone likes him now. But getting back to the
good redemption connection. But get us back to Dan Cougar.
Yeah, they had a lot of these toys that couldn't be sold in America, so they just brought them over to Europe and called these characters like Dan Cougar and Tetsugen 28 and the Bismarck or Ramrod, as he's called in the U.S. from the Star Sheriff, Star Sheriff and the Saber Riders. Mm-hmm. A lot of Star and Saber characters back then.
I'm interrupt you. This is the one I did. Geronimo Draws had a stream. His Q was Spider, so I did this sort of kind of like the female Transformers, like RC,
like Black Arachnia, even
Black Arachnia and Nightbird. So I it's mostly based on Nightbird, and then I tried to make a kind of a Black Arachnia, but make her not a villain. So this is my character, but it also ties into the mythology because I called her Ariadne. And you see how she has the red thread.
That's
like
neat.
she's gonna get through the maze. And then I have a Minotaur one too, so it's gonna be in a set of 3 for me. I got the Pegasus. See, this is all you need. I have my own Dan Cougar right now because
Nice.
Dan Cougar only had three robots in the show, you know. So I could have my Pegasus, I could have my Spider, and my Bull. I got my own Dan Cougar right here, man.
In the Japanese only sequels, he got 2 other robots to combine with.
Yeah, well, no, sorry.
I know,
So anyway, were those toys ever sold in the States?
They couldn't sell them, so they brought them over. They called Dan Cougar a part of the Robo Machines, which that was the European term for GoBots.
Mm-hmm.
Then some of them couldn't be sold in Europe, so it's like, well, we'll just send them to Australia. They're doing very well there. In Australia, GoBots is called Machine Men. So they actually did a GoBots comic that was only in Australia that had Dan Cougar and Bismarck from what actually is called Ramrod in the U.S. from Star Sheriff and the Saber Riders as GoBots. They were living robots like in Transformers. So Ramrod or Bismarck was the evil one, and then Dan Cougar was the good guy. There was a whole comic they did of them fighting. So technically, they're both GoBots, and there's actually canon reason to suggest that, kind of like how Jetfire in the G1 Transformers was just a modified Veritech Valkyrie.
Straight up.
Yeah, I know. That messed with our heads as kids.
Yeah.
We were all a mess that year because everyone was so excited about both shows. So when that toy came, we were just scratching our heads. We were like, wait.
It's one of those things that just makes sense when you got older with the internet.
Yeah.
He even had the RDF. He even had the RDF stickers and everything.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember the first kid in my town. I grew up in a small town. Had that toy, and they were like, "It's Jetfire," and they opened it up, and I was like, "Yeah." Looks like a Veritech fighter to me. It doesn't look anything like the show from but the animation model of Skyfire from the G1 has that exact face I'm talking about. That's that perfect G1 face. And Dan Cougar, the eagle in his robot mode, it's just pristine. It's that exact face, that exact G1 face where it's just sort of impassive, nothing. And I guess that goes back to the giant robos too, because Raideen was like that. Raideen had that face.
If you're going to go back to the 60s, there's Giant Robo or Johnny Sokka, where the robot of that is just like the stoic face, but he has like pupils, so he actually has a face. Yeah. And it's sort of magically whenever the show would have him fight, because of the way the mask was designed, he could look like he's grimacing, or when he's with his kid sidekick, he can look like he's smiling. And it wasn't actually them changing masks. It was just the way the mask for the suit was designed.
Yeah, it's amazing when we look at those giant robot shows and then realize that they had done the live action of so many of them, And so like things they did in animation, they had already done in live action, in the 60s. And, another show that I just started to watch a little bit, which I know it's a classic, but, I'm not an anime expert. I only know what I know. But is Lupin the Third, the original Lupin the Third. That's something. You ever see that, Wyatt?
I have not seen Lupin.
It's on Amazon Prime right now, and
a couple of the episodes are on YouTube weekly on YouTube from. But
it's
TFS
videos. It's sort of like he's sort of like a James Bond type of character.
But he's a bad guy, technically.
He's a thief, and he has this cowboy samurai assistant, and then the girl is like a bombshell. Goodness.
Fujiko, I think is her name. There's
been
many Japanese polls throughout the years of who's the most attractive anime character. Several years in a row, Fujiko won.
Yeah, unbelievable. So the animation, I think, is from 1971 or 2.
70, yeah, that sounds right.
And so it's it's older than Mazinger and a little more. It's like between Mazinger and Speed Racer.
Yeah,
but it's very mature. The violence is very mature. The presentation of her as an attractive woman is very mature. But it also has comedy. It's like Speed Racer for 18-year-olds.
It's what I've always known about, but just never seen. So
it's amazing how much of this stuff we can suddenly find. You would have had to dig forever to find this. But yeah, Dan Cougar is not to jump ship, but these are both on Amazon right now, and it's just a treat to have them. available. I just was able to watch them for free. I mean, of course, I pay for the service, but
You can actually watch them for free on both Tubi TV and Retro Crush. Same library.
I see. Yeah, see, I don't know all this. All right, well, let's switch it a little bit.
Back in the day, you were stuck with a Macross Do You Remember Love VHS. That's
with the wrong title and everything. Yeah, I still have some of those.
Me too.
I have the Captain Harlock one, Vengeance of the Space Pirate.
Oh, you know what? I do too.
Yeah, that whole movie is on Amazon. It's My Youth in Arcadia.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, it has some sections that one cut out. So when you watch it, if you're used to the old VHS one, it's like it has some sections that weren't included. And I mean that's a beautiful film. I mean, it doesn't make sense in a certain way because there's so many time jumps, but just in terms of music and color and character and design, it's just a symphony. It's so beautiful.
I recently picked up the entire Captain Harlock series on DVD.
Oh, really? Oh, wonderful. The 78 one and the 84 one? Yeah. Oh, my gosh. They're so good.
I got Mazinger Z and Great Mazinger as well.
Oh, great. Yes, yeah. I know. I want every now and then I want to post like, slightly sarcastic or ironic things on Twitter. Like this would be my post. It was like, are you a man? How did I say it? You have to phrase it just right. Are you a man, or can you listen to Mayu's theme from Harlock without crying?
That reminds me of a meme
because the truth is, if you see how I did that, it's a little bit backwards when you stop and think about it. Because oh my God, Mayu's when she plays that ocarina, I'm like, the tears. It's like Leiji Matsumoto hits like the combination of image and music when he hits it just right. Oh, it's just beautiful.
The very talented man.
Yeah. So and I have a little girl now, so when I watch it now, I'm like, nope.
Like for me, the equivalent of that is regarding old anime like sci-fi that made me cry. I kind of brought up earlier, Gunbuster, the finale. Like you cannot call. I made a meme because you cannot call yourself a man if you didn't cry at the very end of Gunbuster.
All right, I accept your challenge. I'm gonna watch it and I'll get back to you. Knowing me,
I saw it in 2019. I was literally a blubbering mess for a day.
All right, I'm gonna accept your challenge. Another one that I wanted to. It's funny that we're coming around to finales because I did want to talk about this because Dimos, you have so much of an encyclopedia of knowledge.
For somebody who's 22 who didn't grow up with hardly any of this, I have such a knowledge. That's optimism for you.
But this is the thing. Did the final Mazinger Z, the final episode of Mazinger Z, before it became Great Mazinger, did that ever air in the States? Because that is brutal.
No, it didn't.
Have you ever seen that? Why it is brutal.
They got the last episode, but they cut out the very last scene in the second to last episode.
Oh my God.
Where it has like them hinting up Great Mazinger. It's hinting up the finale where the two villains are going to be introduced. We see their silhouettes. They removed that in the US version. Yeah. And outside of a couple clips they would reuse to censor violent footage from the finale where it's Great Mazinger and Tetsuya, but they try to paint it out like it's supposed to be or Koji or Tommy in that version.
Yeah. Right. I'm gonna have to step away for a minute. Can you guys keep this conversation going? I'll be back in just 2 or 4 minutes.
Yeah, I'll do that.
Keep going.
So they never aired the actual episode proper, but because they only had the rights to Mazinger and not Great Mazinger, and back then, no toy sponsors, only 65 episodes. So like, well, we'll just cut out that ending in the second to last episode, so it just ends with the heroes winning, and that call it the 65th episode.
Right? Yeah.
I will give it that much. It is one of the few 80s cartoons that had a proper ending.
Yeah. Yeah. What did they have a name for the Great Mazinger in Transor Z?
No, it was just Transor. They treated it as if it was the same mecha.
Okay. Because if you remember the intro, some of the scenes in it are Great Mazinger. And
because they had to fill up space, and they had to use that for censorship even. even when it was very apparent it wasn't the same.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. I remember watching it, and I'm like, oh, he has wings now.
Right.
Yeah.
He got wings, but it was too early. So like there was some plot holes in it because of how they had to edit it. But compared to like Voltron, it was I would say, having watched Transfer, it was a lot more coherent.
Excitement. Excitement.
Oh.
Wow, that's exciting. Sorry, guys. We have a little technical issue here at the Smurf Lab.
No worries.
I'm going to put this on. We're going to watch that because I'm going to have to step away to see my little kid for a second. But we're going to watch the finale because it is, because, you know, it's like a Batman and Robin. Like Batman always gets away. He always defeats the villain. And then in this final Muzzinger, it's like, things don't work. You know, the things that always work don't work, and he doesn't win. And it's like, oh my god!
You would never get that in American cartoons like back then. You would never. I'm gonna get the clip in the chat for your private chat. So if you need it,
I think I might be able to come up with it.
If not, it's in the private chat. I sent it.
Oh, is it? Great. All right.
All right.
Maybe you can you share it? Because I got to run in just a second.
Me?
If I hadn't knocked my computer off the base, I would have had it. Silly me. All right, let me try
again. Give me a second.
All right, well, I'll be back. But we definitely need to watch it.
Sorry, I gotta. It's fuck me. Sorry, I'm not. There's kids in the background, but you got the clip up, so.
I think I got it too.
Implication. You got the clip ready? You can put it up on my screen.
I do. I'm just boomering it.
I've got it up on mine if you need it.
Yeah.
So, okay, so.
Is that it? Is that it on
that's
yours
it.
or mine?
On mine.
All right, awesome.
So mine's lagging a bit. So, are we ready? 3.
All right, awesome. I'll be back, you guys.
Should I play it?
I don't know. Was he coming back? Was he going? I don't know.
Hear it?
Yeah, I can hear.
Obviously, this is a bridge, but I mean, it's. He gets fucked up the ass.
So bad.
You would never get away with it in the U.S. like this kind of. I don't even think you could get away with it now on U.S. TV, or even Japanese even. Busted through the windshield.
Oh yeah, man.
It's from a compilation Japan, I guess. So
yeah, she's very sad.
Like you would never see that. Would be the closest I can think of is in the 80s Transformers movie where Optimus fucking dies.
Ooh, but what a movie!
That was a movie. That wasn't meant to air on TV. Eventually, they did air on TV, but they split it up.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But that was a movie. Like as far as kids knew, this was like Days of Future Past. Sort of that deal.
Mm.
and then the show automatically moved after where it left off. But to kids seeing at the time, they thought maybe this was just the bad future, where But like this was on TV in Japan, like this was aired, and that was how they ended the show. Basically, there was an alternate version of that episode that was shown in theaters, Mazinger Z versus the Great General of Darkness, that has like a retelling of it, but with like theatrical level animation. I actually kind of prefer that one, just because there's more action in it.
Yeah,
and I feel like the 90-second episode was done like they made it. I mean, it's really shocking, but like it's like it doesn't feel as satisfying when you compare it to the movie version, where it was being played in theaters at the same time, and it's way more action packed. It's a way more brutal, if you can believe it.
Yeah, that's just something. There's a few things that people, when you look into some of this stuff that are, pretty hardcore, and that scene right there is just unbelievable. It's always even my son, I have a son, and we talk about Voltron, and we, just like my friends did when we were kids, we're just like, first they have to attack with the robots separately. Then they have to think about it. Then they say, hey, let's form Voltron. Then they have to fight and almost lose. And then they have to think, hey, let's form Blazing Sword, right?
Right.
So as a kid, you're like, why didn't you just do that 10 minutes ago? You could have just formed
that's one of the issues with some older robot shows, because, it's one thing when you're watching it once a week, so you don't easily as pick up on the fact that you're just watching the same episode in basic formula. But when you're older and you're having to watch them with streaming, it's very obvious.
Yeah. Well, for us, it was syndication, but it's just funny because like that was even the best of the shows fell into that from now and then, But then to watch Mazinger like do all the tricks and they don't work, and then he's going to fight this and it doesn't work, and then he does this and then he just gets, you're just like, that what?
Yeah, then he just gets the crap kicked out of it.
They didn't, but like with Mazinger, it's basically it kind of the way Koji fights. It's not like say in Voltron where it's the same finishing move basically every time. You could have at the start, but in Koji is in canon very brash, hot-headed, a brawler, and when he fights in Mazinger, his fights are very accordingly. It's a lot of the time. It's brute strength, and as the show progresses, he does try to think of more strategies. But even with Mazinger, it wasn't like, oh, you have all the weapons, you have the axe, you have the sword, you have everything right there at disposal. Mazinger, they treated it like it was like an arms race. Whenever Dr. Hell, the villain of that show, would get his new robot that would outsmart Mazinger, like one of them was able to fly, and Mazinger couldn't fly. So after several battles, they eventually figured out a way to make Mazinger fly by giving him a jetpack that he combines with. Or they realize his armor, you can't defeat this villain who can recombine himself at will. You can't just punch it to death or shoot it with lasers. You have to melt it in order to really defeat it.
Yeah, well, all those shows had something great about them. I was thinking of another one. You might like one thing about Dan Cougar that's very interesting is that Dan Cougar, you get the idea that you're going to meet the first pilot, and he's going to pilot the Eagle, and you're like, okay. Then a couple episodes later, you meet the girl, and she's going to pilot the Cougar. Oh, okay. Then you meet the young whiz kid, and he's going to pilot the Golden Liger. And then there's the cool, mysterious, suave guy, and he's going to pilot the giant woolly mammoth. And you're like, oh, I get it. These things are going to combine into a giant robot. Guess what? It doesn't happen until like 16 episodes.
Yeah. Wow.
And I think that was really great, actually, because
that's awesome. Yeah.
It kept you like, you have to see how they could fight individually, how they could problem solve. It didn't just rely on the same formula.
And that's kind of one thing I think they tried to improve of as the shows went on. They would build up to the robot like it's a movie.
Yeah, and that's what they did.
A lot of action to compensate, like in Dan Cougar, they didn't combine it until they got together in like episode 15. But between them, they knew how to pilot their mechs individually. So you got a lot of good fight scenes, and it kind of showed that even when they're not combined, the robots could do a lot on their own. So making them combine is more satisfying because now you know what they're capable of on their own, and seeing them combine and defeat things that would have otherwise been impossible. That is a very I think it's very satisfying in terms of
I thought
writing.
it was a great thing for them to do. And then another thing, Wyatt, is that with the Dan Cougar, they have their individual, robots that are formed like kind of like animals, but they're also tanks.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's an automatic trigger that when they experience rage as
They get
humans,
superpowers.
then the rage makes the robot power to a higher level.
Oh.
So they play on that for the first 11 episodes, that it's like their rage is what makes the robots kick to their next level. And then they understand that the robot can shift into the humanoid form. And that takes them 8 minutes and then 8 episodes. Then finally, by episode 16, they finally unite the robots into one robot. So it is pretty amazing the way they space it all out. And there's a lot of funny Easter eggs too. Like at one point, they're in this army base that's been abandoned by the army, but all the kids of the army are running the base. So they arrive at the base and they're like, it's just children. And they're like, who's running this base? And the guy's like, it's me. My name's Dan. And like, well, what's your name? Dan Aykroyd. Isn't that hilarious? And then there's another one where they're like, oh, we need the code. What's the code? And it's like, the code is THX1138.
Like,
that's great.
Like George Lucas. So there's a lot of funny like pop culture dropped in there in Dan Cougar. It's hilarious.
You'll notice that as 80s mecha progress, that there's more influence from otaku or nerds of the era.
Yeah.
And that's when you start to notice them referencing, like, even Western media more so, and even referencing older anime, albeit more indirectly. Like, there's an episode of Pat Labor where they parody Ultraman. Yeah, and it even ends the same way as the original Ultraman.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of like the Mazinger editing, except less brutal somehow.
Mm-hmm.
But
well, I'm gonna pivot on this point and then talk up my own book for a little bit. Anybody mind if I do that?
Sure.
All right. And Ray Thulu, I'm glad you were here a little while ago, and I hope you got to see us draw and not just rap about robots. But I did say we were going to rap about robots, so it's not. I mean, that's that's truth in advertising, right there.
Came to see what you got.
We came to do it. We drew, and Wyatt, we're going to see that Kraken at some point, right?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
All right. The big reveal.
Man.
We'll wrap up this broadcast in about 15 minutes. So. All right. Well, let me talk about my book. We're scheduled to launch the day after Valentine's Day, and that is coming up next week. The story of Tales of Zero is basically a kind of a Raiders of the Lost Ark meets Alien. So you have on one hand an alien archaeology story, and then on the other hand you have a group of adventurers who ends up meeting up with a threat that they are completely unprepared for. So it's based on the writings of Clark Ashton Smith, and Clark Ashton Smith was a contemporary of Lovecraft and a constant pen pal of Lovecraft. They would share drafts of stories and swap ideas. And so they were very tight in terms of their creative process. They shared a lot. And Clark Smith was in the California hills in the Bay Area. And then, Lovecraft was either in New York or in Providence. So they were just covering the coast, and they each have their point of view. But Clark Ashton Smith, he has the cosmic horror, but he also has this kind of fantasy element. And I would say that, when you talk about original stories or original plots, I don't know if anyone's ever said this, but since I'm working on a project based on Clark Ashton Smith, I'm going to put this out there. I'm going to propose to you that Clark Ashton Smith, in a way, was the original writer of the plot for the movie Alien. You know what I mean? It's not the most original story, but I can find you a Clark Ashton Smith story where a group of adventurers find a wrecked alien thing. They explore it. There's these weird sarcophagi and things, and then they notice there's this floppy kind of alien. The floppy alien attaches to their faces. Do you know what I mean? Literally, he has face huggers, right? And so it's like this a very typical setup for Clark Ashton Smith is that kind of like we're exploring this old ruin and then we find something and it is much more horrendous than anyone in our party is ready to deal with, and I think that's also the basic setup of Alien 2. So Tales of Zero is one of those stories in the Clark Ashton Smith style where we meet up with our gang and we meet up with them at a tavern, and the main character, Zero, he's kind of a construction worker and a blowhard and a braggart and a scoundrel. I like to say that he's like Han Solo without the heart of gold. So he's this guy, and he's talks tough about when he was a construction worker building all of this stuff. And he has his partner in crime, Ocello, who's a strong, silent type. And then they meet this young kid who is full of ideas but has never been outside the mining colony. And so they set up this adventure. They're going to go explore the alien ruins, get this relic, and if they can get the relic back and sell it, they'll have enough money to get off the colony. But the kind of fun twist storytelling-wise is that Zero and Ocello, because they're construction workers from the older generation, to build the base, they had to drink this stuff called the juice, and it was a stimulant that would give them extended superhuman strength and youthfulness. For 20 hours. They could work 20-hour work days, and it made them unafraid to take risks like climb on cranes and girders. And so all the workers who built became addicted to this juice. And then when the work was done, the corporation didn't care, about these people. So Zero and Ocello are like these leftovers from the generation before, but they still need to do odd jobs to pay for their juice habits. So Ocello and Zero are in it to get the relic, to get the money for a lifetime supply of juice. That's their motivation. So I hope that was a good talk up of the story. And let me see if I can share our trailer, and then we'll look at some other artwork for
One last thing, we only have so many minutes left, but when you're done with the trailer, could I share a little bit of my work?
Oh yeah, definitely. We'll do a wrap up of the artwork in about 5 minutes. We'll show what everybody's trying, and then post it to Twitter for sure.
Thank you.
Oh, no problem. Well, thanks for being with us. Obviously, your knowledge of giant robot shows is second to none. It's awesome. All right, here we go.
Yeah.
Hopefully you can hear this.
Hi everyone, thanks for checking out our campaign.
Oops, wrong one. That's a different one. Let's go to this one. Okay. All of this is actually just our rough draft. Our artist is an insanely talented inker, so what you're seeing here are just pencils with atmospheric colors, so the full pages will have full black inks. But his figures and expressions and layouts are just something unbelievable. And I love it. It kind of reminds me of the old EC Comics horror style. And I try to evoke that with my colors as well. So there you have a little bit of the teaser of this jungle adventure. And then we have one of our perks for everybody who's on the mailing list is a 3D poster. I'll show you this. And this was drawn by Elliot Rodriguez. He's just an awesome guy and an amazing
Thanks for
artist.
checking out our campaign for this diesel punk sci-fi horror adventure comic. It's a thrill ride for the senses, a movie for the mind, and we want you to experience it. For everyone who signs up for the mailing list before February 21st and backs the campaign, you are going to get a free 3D poster with line art by Elliot Rodriguez. Take a look at this. Take a look. So these are the posters. I've got them laying on a rug here so you can see them. They're pretty amazing 3D. And I put a Green Lantern comic next to them for some scale. These are 11 by 17. And I printed them on 3 different stock to see which had the best 3D effect. This one here, there's another comic for scale. What's the best one? Take a look. Even without the glasses, look how his shoulder and his head stay in one plane of focus while the background moves. It's pretty cool. Look at the hand over his shoulder. The hand is closer to the camera than the backhand of the monster. And that effect is really amplified with the glasses. And also look at his elbow, his cape moves in a different plane than the trees just behind him, and the monster's eyes behind the bush. So the picture lends itself really well to a 3D effect. Elliot did an amazing job, and we're super excited to have his support on this campaign. This is going to be a free perk for everybody who's on the mailing list on the day we drop, February 21st. So spread the word. get the mailing list out there, and everyone who's on it on the day we drop the backs of the campaign will get this poster absolutely free. Thanks so much, and make sure you watch our videos on Purple Smurf YouTube channel, our show Under the Mushroom Cap. We're going to have guests and interviews and fun content. No politics, just amazing sci-fi adventure fun. So check us out and support Tales of Zero on Indiegogo.
So that's what I recommend. Everybody get on the mailing list, get over there so that you get the free 3D poster. And like I say earlier, Wyatt, we just want to get a base hit. It's a 48-page graphic novel, 100% straight up fun space adventure with characters that you care about. I talk about the roller coaster, which is that you're kind of going up the hill of the roller coaster, and that's a process where the reader learns to bond with the characters, learns to care about their fate. And then once they get into the jungle and stuff starts to go wrong, then the roller coaster car goes over the hill, and then it's just a kinetic ride to the end. And that's the structure of the book. So it's like, you care about the characters, you want to know what's going to happen next. And then at a certain point, you turn the page and it's just like whoosh, it's just kinetic. At that point, it's all action, and I like that setup of a story. You got to have both. You can't just throw in the action until the people learn to.
No.
Neat.
Error.
Error?
Yeah, where did the Purple Smurf
rejoin.
go?
That's fine. Okay, a second.
Well, while he's doing that, feast your eyes on the McCracken.
Nice. Me a little boy.
So, yeah, there he is in all his glory on the legal pad there. So,
Nice.
Yeah, I didn't really know what to do with the chest, so I just kind of... He's more of a silhouette, I guess. But there it is.
Neat.
So yeah, have you seen Lupin the Third?
Saw bits of it. I've never actually watched it because because the thing with me is like I'm very weird because like even though I'm 22, I have all these interests that most people my age are into. Which I don't even know how that really happened. I guess it gives me a bit more of a personality, I guess, because if I didn't really have this or art, I'd be kind of dull. And I'm thankful that I'm not. But I've seen a lot of the older mecha anime to an extent, or at least know enough about them to understand the plot. But with the other more well-known mainstream stuff like Lupin and stuff, I haven't seen much of it.
Right.
And then you get stuff where I know it's probably not most popular opinion, but I am not a fan of Osamu Tezuka, who did Astro Boy.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not a big fan of his work. And that's just, I think it's because, it's kind of like the Citizen Kane, stuff like Astro Boy and Kimba. Everyone loves it to death. I don't really see the appeal. I mean, it's good, but like, for me personally, it's I mean, knowing what else is out there, it's come out since. I find it kind of dry.
Yeah.
That's not. I'm not judging the man. I mean, granted, he's a bit of a Madonna in real life, but like, I mean, he has a right to be. He literally is the reason why the industry is a thing, and I'm not trying to downplay that. I guess because it is probably the Citizen Kane effect for me. It's so well known, everyone loves it, and then I come and read it, and I'm like, this is neat and all, but I don't know why I don't enjoy it. I feel like I'm told to enjoy it, whereas like Leiji Matsumoto or like Shitaro Ishinomori, Gonagai, Mitsuteru Okayama, their work is somewhat derivative of what Osamu Tezuka started. But their work I find more entertaining because I think their work speaks to me more, like whether it be, Kid and the Giant Robot or the kid with the ESP powers and his assistants, like in Yokoyama's work, the cyborg superheroes who fight terror groups, like in Ishinomori's Kamen Rider and Cyborg 009, the space opera with a very very moody, more I think tone driven than really character story, like Leiji Matsumoto. Then you have Go Nagai, where it's just chaos. He does varying stories of varying kinds and varying genres, and they're all equally insane, but they work.
Demos, we're loving this, but we want to see your art.
Oh,
good nap. Sure. You're back.
You survived. Heaven's sake. Yeah, I mean, I can go with the art. You want me to tell a little bit about my story?
No, just show us. We only got 4 minutes.
I know, but basically, I'll give you like the 20-second version of my story. So basically, in my comics, there's a story about a superhero team, like in Johnny Sacco or stuff like that, or Giant Robo. And there's several super spies who are all female. So I'm taking stuff from like Gunbuster and some obscure stuff like a Desert Rose, which was a story about counter-terrorist all-female team who fought against communists in Europe. But they're all female, like, anti-terror groups. So they're like defusing bombs and stuff. Could you get the screen up so I can show it?
Yep. Okay.
And it's kind of like that. But they have a scientist and robots, and there's currently like 2 main pilots. So Jessica is a ginger. She controls Grandor, who is he's kind of like Giant Robo. He's a parody of him, except he's just not a Pharaoh version. Like you can kind of see the designs in this one. Like my icon you see right now is Jessica from my story. Redhead, and then you have Sasha, who's a newer character. She controls Diamond, who's more akin to like Mazinger, and even some of Tokusatsu characters like a Jumborg Ace and stuff. And her dad made Diamond. It's like a virtual robot. It comes from like the cyberspace, like in Gridman. It comes in a real life, digitizes, and she can control Diamond, but Diamond can only run for an hour. And conversely, with Grandor's weakness, Jessica can't pilot it, so she's at the mercy of having like hide in locations to scout out to fight monsters so she doesn't get crushed. So there are weaknesses to these characters, but basically in this story, they're fighting against a giant dimension-hopping insects, and obviously this is still ongoing.
That's exactly what Wyatt drew a picture of. All right, so can you show us a piece that you could even post on my Twitter feed, because we gotta wrap this up in 2 minutes.
Totally. Well, basically, if I get
were you drawing something tonight?
It's probably not anything from my comic, but just some art I did of some of the inspirations. Going back on the Yokoyama connection, Giant Robo and Tetsujin 28.
Yep.
I did these sort of reimaginings of them, with like Tetsujin being an older Robo, like gorilla arms because he's older, needs heavier hydraulics. Well, Giant Robo is the newer robot. It's more refined, more streamlined. And I kind of took inspiration from various versions of those characters. They kind of show you that there's stuff I do even with that isn't just exclusively.
Well, you know what? What you should do is there should be a picture. Maybe you can even put it. You can DM it to me.
I will.
I will put it in the wrap up of this show where I post all the art, and then people can go on that to find your webcomic. Okay.
I link my DeviantArt or so.
Yeah, or whatever it is that you want people to find.
My DeviantArt.
All right. You send it to me in a DM, and I'll post it. Okay.
I sent it to you right now.
Okay, great, and I'll post it later or first thing tomorrow.
Totally. Thank you for having me on.
All right. Well, I'll show you guys one more of mine, and then we're going to say goodnight. This is one that I did kind of once I knew the topic, because when I'm the host, if I'm drawing, I lose track of things. I don't look at the chat. I don't like do things because it's so into the drawing. So I taught myself to do a pre-drawing just in case, So I'm going to share that with you right now. So this is the one I did as a pre-drawing. You see this?
It's neat.
Oh, nice.
So this is this. Now I realize I made a team. So this is the Minotaur. See it?
That's neat.
He's got the bull body. He's got the red cape like a bullfighter.
Yeah, that's cool, man.
Bull whip. But he's got that. That's the face I was telling you about. That's the face. You see the passive face that the fire had. So So now I've got my team. I've got the Spider, who's Ariadne, to be the female counterpart to this guy, the Minotaur, and then I have the Pegasus that I drew on the stream tonight. So I'll post all three of my guys, and look at that, I have my own giant robo team. But you can see, obviously, one of my favorite things about the classic 70s giant robo that you see in this character is the upper leg, how there's a metal rectangle that can bend for no reason. Don't you love that? How Mazinger can bend.
Comic where it's just
That's
like
so iconic.
tubing underneath it,
Yeah.
kind of like tokusatsu. So there's a reason why it can bend,
Yeah,
and there's like tubing.
I love that. I love the flexible metal of those characters. So I definitely tried to pay homage to that with the leg, and then up in the upper arms, pay homage to how fragile the toys were.
Yeah.
Oh, I know.
The Voltron lion's tail goes into that socket, and you just pray to God.
Geez.
Oh, don't even get me started. Some of the later Transformers where the gold plastic would just shatter if you just breathed on it.
All right, so I'm going to wrap up the show. Thanks, Wyatt, for spending an hour and a half with us.
Oh, thank you, man.
We'll boost this, and we'll try to get people who might not have seen your campaign and might love giant robos and might like this whole idiom, but don't know anything about what's going on your side of the Twitterverse. Maybe they will check out your campaign,
Yep.
And then vice versa. Demos, what you're doing, maybe there's people on our side of the Twitterverse who don't know anything about your webcomic and what you're doing. So, that's the whole idea, is just get eyes on projects that people might not otherwise see and find some connections, from people who've never met each other, because I've never met either of you, but there's some common ground here that we can build on, and we had fun. So there you go. All right, everybody, that wraps it up for There Will Be Ink. Check out Demos Z and his webcomic, Grand Nexus. Definitely check out Eternal Armor, launching soon. And of course, you're going to back Tales from Zero because you need to get the 3D poster. Thank you, guys. Have a good night. Thanks for drawing with us. And everybody who was drawing in the chat, post it on my Twitter in response to this, and then I will do a summary tweet first thing tomorrow morning. All right, thank you, guys.
All right.